This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the WWE Podcast. It is Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, and WrestleMania 38 has concluded. We can now look ahead to WrestleMania 39 in LA, and this Raw after WrestleMania, right off the bat, guys, I have to say, did not feel like a Raw after WrestleMania, and I even remember feeling this way last year, and that's probably because of the pandemic and all that, but since WWE has been in front of live crowds, barring the whole pandemic era, I would have to say this did not feel like a Raw after WrestleMania. It had its hints of that, right? Like the crowd was trying to sink their teeth into something. They were coming up with some unique chants like "We are losers, we are sheep." I think there was a few other things that they said. "We don't care," I think is what they also chanted to Damien Priest. But if you plop this Monday Night Raw blindly into a lineup of Raws and you didn't know that it was a Raw after WrestleMania, you probably wouldn't identify this as the Raw after WrestleMania. And it should be blatantly obvious when it's a Raw after WrestleMania. It just didn't feel like it at all. And it's not just, I'm not pointing this at the crowd because they were waiting for something big, some kind of big return. And I mean, they had Ezekiel. I don't know what more you could ask for. I mean, the brother of Elias? I mean, you're talking about major returns and debuts. That I think that even supersedes anything that happened at WrestleMania. I mean, that was earth-shattering. And, don't worry, we're going to talk about Ezekiel. But the crowd in general in Dallas, in the American Airlines Arena, they were just waiting for something. And rightfully so. The Raw after WrestleMania has become kind of a quasi-pay-per-view in its own right. And the standard for the bar for the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania has been set much higher than any other typical Raw. And rightfully so too, because there have been a lot of great moments on the Raw after WrestleManias. Cash-ins, big returns, John Cena getting laid out by Brock Lesnar. I mean, that was only, 10 years ago. There have been major moments. Dolph Ziggler becoming world champion. There have been some great chants. Cesaro destroying the beach ball. People just going into business for themselves. And I don't believe we even got the disclaimer from Corey Graves and Michael Cole from corporate to make sure that the audience at home knows that this is Bizarro World and that you may hear people being cheered for that normally get booed and vice versa. We didn't get that usual brainwashing ahead of time, but there was none of that needed because not a lot of it happened. And again, I'm not pointing the blame at the audience because they didn't have a whole lot to go on. There wasn't a whole lot happening here. And again, it wasn't let me just also preface this by saying this was not a bad Monday Night Raw. In fact, I would argue if this wasn't the Raw after WrestleMania, I probably would have a bit of a more positive view because it progressed a lot of storylines, had a big turn on MVP, a re-debut of Elias, now known as Ezekiel. Veer Mahan, guys, the Veer Mahan watch is over attacking the Mysterios. He's coming in as a heel, so we know that. The long-awaited return. And Edge and Damien Priest have aligned themselves together. Maybe there'll be a third. You got to have three to be a faction. All right, so there's got to be a third. I don't want Edge in a tag team. Okay, I want him in a faction, a leader of three or more. So we'll see if that materializes. But there were some big things that happened on Raw. But nothing, I guess, to the level that I feel like it should have been. And not only did it not have a ton to go on from a Raw after WrestleMania standpoint, which again is sometimes unfairly high of a standard, you end it the way you ended WrestleMania on a flat 6-month-old soda note. That's exactly what it feels like. I shouldn't say 6 months. Probably like if you open a can of soda and then you just stick it back in the fridge and 3 days later you go to drink it. That's how WrestleMania ended, and that's how Raw ended. It's like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but you're like, this could be a whole lot better if it was fresh, right? It's like that. That's how Raw ended, just apropos the same way it ended WrestleMania, where you're, Roman standing there in victory or whatever, and you're waiting for somebody or something, some big return, somebody to stand up to him, and it didn't happen. I actually kept waiting for, if you smell, at the end of Raw. Nope. I don't know at this point where the hell The Rock is, why they haven't brought him in, at least just for a night, and then he can be via satellite, once a month, just check in to remind us that this match is going to happen in 12 months in LA, something. And they still did nothing with The Rock. I guess I should right now retire the idea of The Rock, because that has been my whole premise for WWE, and my hope of WWE justifying them using the slogan of biggest WrestleMania match of all time to bring The Rock in and retire that idea and retire the fact that he's probably not coming anytime soon. I mean, I really thought about it at Survivor Series last year with the Golden Egg, and WWE celebrating 25 years since The Rock debuted or whatever it was, as the Blue Chipper, Rocky Maivia, and I thought he would for sure show up as a cameo, rock bottom somebody. Nothing. It's been radio silence from The Rock's camp, and I know he's got a ton of projects going on, a ton stuff I guess that he's working on that we don't know about. Yet somehow he also has time to be in the gym 28 hours a day, and somehow. I mean, I really believe The Rock has just found some kind of time machine that allows him to have more than 24 hours in a day. There's some kind of secret. He's hacked the Matrix. That's what I believe. He has hacked into the Matrix, this simulation that we're all living in. And he has cracked the code to being able to freeze time. Because how The Rock manages to do everything he does, between media appearances, between being just a dad and a father and a husband, or maybe that's lacking, but I mean, it looks like from at least his Instagram, which take that with a grain of salt, that he's doing in being a good dad and husband. He spends 18 hours a day in the gym. He's the owner of the XFL, bought it from Vince McMahon. There's just like movies, movie sets, movie deals, commercials. Again, how the hell does he do this? And I guess the other part of this is, if he has found this time machine, he's found all this time, well, can he spare one effing night to come to WrestleMania and hit somebody with a rock bottom and start a year-long program? You don't have to be there every week. You can do what you did with John Cena back in WrestleMania 26, 27, and just be there via satellite. People will be just fine. Okay, so anyway, I guess I'm giving up on the Rock idea for now. I'm retiring it. I'm putting it to bed. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. So anyway, guys, that was a bit of a long open, but I wanted to get that out there. Thank you, everybody, for joining me here on the WWE Podcast. We are right now, as I speak, the number 30 podcast in the United States for wrestling. And that is very temporary, I know, because the big time podcast will come roaring back over the next couple of weeks, and I'll probably be back in my usual top 50-ish spot, and it's cool. It's cool. I still feel I'm very excited to be able to at least reach this, even if it's a temporary goal here, because right now, as I speak, guys, we are above a lot of big name podcasts. Again, very temporary. It's just this very minute that this is the case. If you go check by the time you listen to it, you're going to look at it, you're like, what are you talking about, dude? You're just lying to us. That's because they change by the hour. But as of this moment, we are ranked higher than The Torch, The Observer, Bischoff's podcast, Booker T's podcast, the Ravens podcast, and The New Day. We are right now ranked above New Day's podcast. That's a really cool deal. And it's all because of you guys. We had record downloads over the weekend. A lot of it had to do with WrestleMania. Okay. And I really appreciate it. Some of you are brand new. Some of you have come in from TikTok, and I really appreciate that. We have been creating content all over the place. Our website is brand new and fresh, and I really encourage you to go check it out if you want to go ad-free, by the way. Ad-free and 50% off, and videos, 50% off. Use promo code WrestleMania when you go VIP on the website, and that WrestleMania code is going to be going away. We're going to be extending it for just a few more days, And then that sale will be going away, as well as on Apple Podcasts. Right now, it's 99 cents to get yourself ad-free. You just click the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts right within the app, and you can get 99 cents a month, or you do $10 for the entire year ad-free. Lock that in. Even if we raise the price, you're locked in. We can't touch it. And lastly, on Patreon, which, guys, you are so much fun to listen to and watch on our Discord server. You can join us there for just $1. For $5 in the second tier, you get videos as well as everything else that's in the first tier. So check that out if you're interested. And speaking of which, on Patreon, I would like to welcome a few new people who joined us over the last couple of days. Bruce Alter, Rodney Nickens. I hope I said that right. Rodney Nickens Jr. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining us here on the WWE Podcast. I hope you enjoy your stay. If there's anything I can do to make your stay more comfortable, please let me know. I don't know why I feel like I'm in hospitality, but I guess that's what it is now. So let's see what else here. Shout out to Ashley's podcast. If you guys haven't checked out Ashley Mann, who's been here with me on the WWE Podcast since day one, I feel like she has her own podcast called Kick-Ash, Kikash. It's called Kick-Ash Podcast, and I'd really recommend you guys give it a little bit of love, as well as Michael Ritter, who is our SmackDown review guy, co-hosting with John. He has a podcast called Football Function. I'd appreciate if you guys go and give them some love, hit that subscribe button, give them a 5-star rating, and just kind of as a thank you, because they have helped out this show more than I can tell you, and I really want to give it back to them, and hopefully you guys will join me in that venture. So one last thing, I know I shamelessly promote things at the beginning of the show, but hey, man's got to pay his bills. The last thing is, on the website, if you go to www.podcast.com and you love to shop on Amazon, there's a huge big red button, okay? Right in the middle of the darn page. As you scroll down, you can't miss it. It's the Amazon link. If you do any shopping on Amazon, click that link, because it'll kick back whatever you buy on Amazon, a very small percentage back to the show. I really recommend that you do that. Maybe bookmark that link, so every time you do shopping, it connects us to Amazon, and it tells Amazon that we sent you, and they give us like a really small percentage back, but it adds up, okay? And I really appreciate everybody who's done that. I do see that people have clicked on it, and trust me, there's no extra hidden fees or anything. It's simply their affiliate marketing program that we were signed up and approved for. That's all it is, okay? It's affiliate marketing. There's no extra anything. I just want to be very clear on that. So, yeah, I really appreciate it. And Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan will be back tomorrow. Already, it's been a week. They're back tomorrow with more of your mailbag answers and emails that they'll be answering. So send me your questions to mailbag@wwepodcast.com for Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan. I'll be doing voicemails just like last week. And if you are in Patreon, send your message internally on Patreon to just I believe there's like a contact the creator or whatever you guys normally message me on your end. Send me your messages through Patreon, and you'll be prioritized in Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fans' responses. So, guys, let's talk about Monday Night Raw. I did a little bit the open here, and then I did some shameless plugging, but let's get back to it. I did enjoy Monday Night Raw, and I thought that it was productive. I thought it moved things in the right direction. And the next pay-per-view, by the way, I did a little bit of research, okay? Just to see where we're going in the next few months. Just to see, because I'm like not sure of the pay-per-view schedule. So, okay, we got through WrestleMania, right? The WrestleMania Backlash is on May 8th. So we've got 4 weeks more of television to get through. That's pretty significant, about standard. It is in Providence, Rhode Island at WrestleMania Backlash. June 5th is Hell in a Cell. July 2nd is Money in the Bank. And then get this. July 30th is SummerSlam in Nashville. Okay, that's as far as it goes. Survivor Series, we don't know about September. We don't know about October, probably because somewhere in there they're going to Saudi Arabia for all the shows that, we all love so much. And then Survivor Series is on November 26th in Boston. So that's the pay-per-view schedule, guys. So first up, of course, is WrestleMania Backlash on May 8th in Providence, Rhode Island. And they certainly move things forward this week. And I'll start with Cody Rhodes, who came out and opened the show. He may have been the biggest thing on the show, to be honest, in terms of star power. outside of Roman Reigns, but outside, I mean, look, we'll get to the finish of Raw. As he said, I wasn't very high on it. Let me just say that. It was just nothing more than a promo for SmackDown to say, hey, I'm here to just promote SmackDown. Here's the hook. Watch the show so you guys can see who my next opponent is, essentially. But Cody Rhodes comes out and gave a very emotional promo about his father. Dusty Rhodes put up a very, very famous picture of him, shared some personal things about his father, how the picture he put up was the picture that was in his bedroom, I think it was. Could be wrong on the room. Of his father's house until he took his dying breath, right? That was a very meaningful picture to him and his family with Dusty Rhodes there. And he said something very important to me that I really thought was cool. And it was also growth for Cody Rhodes. And that is that he said that he was really, at first, it's taken him a long time to stop trying to perform, stop trying to do things for his dad, but now do things for himself, and thereby doing things for his dad by doing things for himself, because that's what his dad would have wanted. That was a good point to bring up, because with a name like Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes, people, I mean, look, if you're like me, I'm 37. If you are my age or younger, you probably didn't see a whole lot of Dusty Rhodes. I mean, you might have seen maybe the Son of a Plumber promo, which, good God Almighty, if you have not seen Son of a Plumber, go Google it or YouTube it. Just put Dusty Rhodes, Son of a Plumber. Boom. Come right up. And the reason I say that is because if you want to see a promo with actual guts, feeling, and the opposite of most of today's promos, like 95% of them, go check that out, because you'll be reminded what pro wrestling can be in terms of promos. Now, that said, Dusty Rhodes' career, the WWE Championship always eluded him. And Cody Rhodes had said that, Undertaker has held it, Shawn Michaels has held it, Hulk Hogan, who got a whole lot of boos, which is funny, he held it, and that he wants to do right by his father, and by himself. And he will make himself WWE World Champion, essentially. I mean, I guess the official name we've landed on, by the way, is WWE Universal, or WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. I think that's what we've landed on. Why it needs to be so many names and things, or so many words in the name, I don't know. But that said, he wants to focus on the WWE Championship. Now, is it going to be right away? I don't think so, because I think Roman going to SmackDown on Friday is going to lead to maybe Drew McIntyre. And so that said, I think he'll hang out on SmackDown for a little while. But this is going to be very interesting to see how they manage with Roman Reigns now being able to work with anybody on the roster, anybody, Raw or SmackDown, but also have one show without a top champion while Roman is competing on the other brand with whoever is challenging him at the moment. For instance, say Drew McIntyre comes out on SmackDown. He interrupts Roman. They finally go face to face. We get a nice stare down. They're building to the next pay-per-view at Backlash. Well, then where does that leave Raw? I know Cody made his intentions known, but he didn't say when. I think it was just behind the scenes. If you were to read between the lines, it was whenever Roman's done on SmackDown with Drew or whoever's going to challenge him, I'll be waiting in the wings as the next challenger. In so many words, I think that's the way that WWE is going to work this, because Roman can't do double duty. And not only is it, I think, overexposing Roman, but it splits the importance of each rivalry, I think. You want to be able to focus on Roman and somebody, not Roman and multiple people. It gets, to me, a little bit diluted when you have your world champion fighting two people just for the sake of making sure that both shows have a top champion that they can contend for. This is where they've now booked themselves into whatever mess that they have booked themselves into now, because they wanted to unify the titles and make sure that they can make this WrestleMania match between Brock and Roman as big as possible. Now they've done it. Now they have to live with the consequences of this. The consequences, the downside is just what I said. You're going to have one world champion that, sure, can float between any brand. I actually accept that. Makes total sense. But you're going to have one brand probably for at least a 1 to 2 month period without a top champion that people are talking about that they can contend for, unless they do some kind of tournament, whatever that lasts a really long time, because whoever's Roman's working with, say for example, it is Drew McIntyre on SmackDown, that program presumably is going to last 1, 2, 3 months. And what's Roman going to do? He's going to hang out on SmackDown most of the time. He's not going to be on Raw. So maybe the focus gets put on the United States Championship, which, by the way, guys, the United States Championship and Intercontinental Championship were not on WrestleMania. Think about that. Yeah. But that's the downside. The positive is you can have the world champion work with anybody. But it's kind of half-assing your brand split, right? Because now you have 2 worlds, but only 1 top championship. And you're going to have 1 brand without a top championship. It's for however long the champion is working with their opponent on the other brand. So, I mean, sure, again, Roman could do multiple double duty here, but I would not advise that. So it's going to be very interesting to see the downside, how they manage that. And my point is, though, with Cody Rhodes, a very emotional promo. It felt a little forced at times. I was trying to see if he was giving us some crocodile tears. I saw a few crocodile tears, I have to say. I saw a little bit of crocodile tears. I'm not saying his whole promo was BS or rooted in total falsehood. No, I think there was a lot of truth there. But it felt a little bit like a forced choke up. I'm not saying for sure, but Cody's much better and much improved on the microphone, and I'm not saying for sure it was. And somebody's going to come in there and say that was genuine, and you know what? It may have been. I just sensed a little bit of forced emotion there. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it didn't hurt the promo in my mind because I think that he stated his mission clear. And I'm glad that he essentially gave us his mission statement that he's gonna capture that WWE Championship, the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship, whatever the hell it is, for his, not just his dad, but for himself and for us. So cool, fine, great. And Cody could be the one to take it off Roman. Why not? Cody Rhodes has a lot of days in front of him. He's found his identity. He knows who he is. He's not Stardust. He's not just the son of a plumber. He's not Dusty Rhodes' kid. The American Nightmare has his own fan base. He's got his own following. He has separated himself enough from his dad to not be overshadowed by his dad anymore, but be able to mention his dad as a strengthening of his own character instead of trying to lean on his dad as a crutch and reminding us that he's here because of his dad, right? Which is what had happened in his previous run and how people viewed him. So I think that overall, this was a really good promo from Cody. Seth Rollins did come out to interrupt, didn't say anything. They just shook hands and he left. It was weird. I mean, Seth didn't say anything? I did not understand. So what was Seth out there for? I don't know. I was very confused by that, but they shook hands and that was that. Okay, let's get into a little bit more of the meat of the show here. We got Sasha Banks. I'm going to jump a little bit all over the place, guys, as I normally do, because that's how my brain works, and it's my show. Sasha Banks and Naomi defeat Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan via pinfall. And this is, this match was fine. You would imagine that the new women's tag team champions have a little bit of momentum here, and they're going to continue to get victories until somebody challenges them. And don't worry. One of the women's tag teams already dissolved. What did I say? I said the minute that WrestleMania is over, I said 1 or 2 of those tag teams, and I say quote unquote tag teams that were thrown together to make the illusion, create the illusion that there's an actual women's tag division, which, by the way, dirty secret, there's not. They're going to have 1 or 2 teams break up. Well, we got one of them on Raw in Carmella and Zlina Vega. So, we'll get to that breakup in a minute, too, with all the weird makeout with Corey Graves, very weird. But here, this match between Banks and Naomi versus Ripley and Morgan, it was fine. I mean, Morgan hit a face buster into Banks' knees. Morgan apologized to Ripley after the match, and Ripley walked out. And then later in the show, Ripley told Morgan that she'd convinced WWE officials to give them a title shot next week, despite their loss. And then they hugged. Okay, so this was not on Hulu, which tells you all you need to know about the importance of this. But it is significant because Sasha and Naomi need opponents. They need opponents. I mean, at least they showed up on Raw. They didn't just slip and fall on a banana peel into the black hole like so many women who win these tag belts do. So that's good. And these two could be a long-standing rivalry for them. I mean, not that they have really a whole lot of other places to go. Okay. Elias then returned as Ezekiel. He interrupted a Kevin Owens promo. Owens talked about Stone Cold and said that he had a bad back and that, this should be stricken from the record, that he lost to Austin and just taking and giving a lot of excuses. He gave a lot of excuses about his back, how he's in pain. He should have called it off, but he was here for us, and all that. And it made me want to see Stone Cold come out and drop him with another stunner, which I'm kind of sad he didn't, honestly. I thought Austin would be there on Monday Night Raw. I really did. I mean, not to get into another program or another match, but just for, to kind of bolster the show a little bit, just for one more night, come back and hit one more stunner and get on a plane and leave and go back to your ranch, And they didn't. It just, I don't know. Did they not have a sense of urgency for Raw? Did they not want to pop a rating? It felt like a kind of a complacent, you'll be here because it's a Raw after WrestleMania, and then not delivering on that label of Raw after WrestleMania. It's very, very confusing. But Elias returns as Ezekiel. People were not sure what the hell to think when he first came out. I didn't know who he was until he came out, and you had to really look. The no beard thing on Elias is very weird, I have to say. It's almost as weird, but not quite, as Shawn Michaels with no hair. Not that disturbing, but it was definitely a weird sight. And Elias denied himself as Elias and said he's the little brother of Elias. He's Ezekiel, and it was very. This was also weird. Owens laughed him off. He threatened to do something if he didn't get out of the ring in 10 seconds. He counted down from 10, and then Owens himself left. So, boy, you talk about a fall from grace for Kevin Owens, right? You go from bringing Stone Cold Steve Austin out of retirement, main eventing WrestleMania, to working with Ezekiel. I mean, wow. I mean, that's not a epic fall. That's like an eternal fall. I mean, he might as well be working with like some kind of Lucha House Party member or something. I mean, that's how far he's fallen. And I hope this is not a long-standing program. But Ezekiel, I got to say, I'm not exactly excited about it. WWE, Vince just feels that for some reason he has to change names of people that don't need name changes. Now, I know Elias threw his guitar in a fire pit a year ago or however long it's been, and that was a symbolic change of his character, but do we really also need a name change? Elias was kind of a cool name. You go to Ezekiel, it sounds kind of dorky. I mean, it's also a biblical name. It's not a terrible name, but it doesn't instill fear. It's kind of dorky, I don't know. Not my favorite name to go from Elias to Ezekiel, and also the story of him denying his identity that he's Elias, he's really Ezekiel, or Elias's brother. I don't know. This was weird, and I don't know what to make of it. The fans didn't either. They were just like, what the hell is this? Okay. Miz defeats Dominic Mysterio after hitting the skull-crushing finale. And this match was very quick. Again, a match that was not on Hulu, so I had to do my notes here, and I'm using a website as a guide here. But The Miz did defeat Dominic Mysterio. I'm fine with it because I dislike Dominic so much that I'm willing to sacrifice a Miz victory for that. Like, Dominic Mysterio is just vanilla on top of vanilla on a vanilla cone. And there's nothing fun about it. It's just, you know exactly what you're going to get. It's never exciting. There's not really any like kind of substance or personality to it. It's just blah. So, The Miz defeating Dominic Mysterio, I really don't care. The debut of Veer Mahan then came next. He came back and he came down to the ring and attacked both the Mysterios after Dominic lost. So there's that. Veer Mahan is now an official part of the WWE Raw roster, guys. Everybody can breathe easy. That's you talk about a moment of the night. That was a moment of the night. Veer Mahan's debut. Bianca Bel-Air then celebrated the Raw Women's Championship, talked about her black eye, and said that she was ready to defend because, guys, I'm not saying that I'm smarter than anybody. I'm not. Trust me. There's a lot of listeners out there that are way deeper in wrestling knowledge than I am and are smarter than I am. But I do have to say that every WrestleMania that I have come off over the last several years, I have said that the person who wins, a babyface that finally climbs the mountain and wins, they have a corporate mandate to come out and say that they will be a fighting champion in so many words. Why does that need to always be every babyface's declaration? So Bianca essentially said this herself. She talked about her nasty eye, right? And then said that she was ready to defend against anyone and everyone now that she's back on top. So again, I'm a fighting champion. Good God, man. Can we get a different, less cozy, like promo? Somebody with a little bit of an edge? Somebody that doesn't always have to say when they debut that it's my dream to be here. I've always dreamed. It's my dream. WWE's my dream. All I do is dream. Just shut up, right? Can I get somebody that's real and doesn't just stroke the corporate, you know what? I was going to say something really dirty. You know what I'm going to say, right? Think about it. It's a PG show. I can't. But, all right. I feel like I'm going to go like WWE Podcast After Dark. Maybe I'll make that a thing. A WWE Podcast After Dark would be a much more colorful, a colorful show. Maybe I'll make that like a video podcast or something. What do you guys think about that? Like WWE After Dark, I'll create its own little logo, and it's just like it's a much more adult version of this show, but in snippets. Like I wouldn't be able to record a whole podcast like here I am now. I mean, I barely have time to do this, but rather like video snippets of things, and I don't know. Let me know what you guys' ideas on that. Okay, let's move on. Bianca Belair again. Oh, well, she talked about her Raw Women's Championship, her victory, and she's fine on her promo, and that black eye looks rough, I gotta say. And the crowd was with her generally, but no Becky. Just a victory statement and essentially like a bow, and she left. Again, not very Raw after WrestleMania. Is that a word? WrestleMania-y. Okay. NXT Championship was on the line, though. Braun Breaker faced Dolph Ziggler. Braun Breaker did beat Dolph Ziggler clean, and he fought off the interference from Robert Roode. He got the win after the military press power slam. Braun Breaker, I think this is a good stage to introduce him. I think that's what this is really all about. It's making the impact. It's making the statement, blah, 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 right? And it was, though. It's true. I mean, I mock that, but it's true. And it was a good stage to put Braun Breaker on if you're trying to introduce him in front of the more mainstream audience that doesn't probably watch NXT. That's probably why he didn't get as big of a reaction as he would in NXT itself, because people on Raw, a majority of them were probably like, huh? Who? Who's this? Right? But Braun Breaker is now your new NXT champion. MVP came out and put over Lashley as he didn't even need my help, and put him over like $1 million and saying he's the almighty. Lashley comes out and they seem like they're all buddy-buddy, but MVP, after he challenged, or after Omos came out and said he got lucky, it was a fluke, challenged Lashley. Lashley was about to step to him. MVP attacks Lashley from behind, and then they both proceed to beat down Bobby Lashley. I really like this. On every level, because Lashley needs a boost. He's established as a babyface, but he shed any heel tendencies or heel connections he has had now. MVP was the last of that. MVP turned on him. So the heel connection's gone there. Plus, it now makes you get behind Bobby to want to see him get his hands on MVP. And he will. It also gives Omos a mouthpiece that he so desperately needs. It's a win-win-win all the way around. It was very well executed. Crowd was behind Lashley. They were booing this segment. I can't say enough about it. Really, it was good. Solid segment, easy to understand, and all parties involved win. Omos gets a mouthpiece. MVP gets to work and help out a new talent. And Bobby Lashley continues to get that babyface boost by sympathy, wanting to, and also vengeance, living vicariously through Bobby to want to see him get his hands on MVP. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Okay, let's see. Queen Zlina attacked Carmella after blaming Carmella for the tag team loss at WrestleMania. She blamed her for the reason why they lost their women's tag titles. And Carmella and her fought a little bit. Zlina kicked her outside the ring and was about to chase her and about to hit Carmella. And then Corey Graves shields his fiance. And then they do just some weird stuff, right? Like, Carmella and Corey Graves is the worst kept secret in pro wrestling. I mean, as far as couples go, and everyone's known about it for many months. And then they bring it out to the forefront just a couple of months ago, and now they have a full out makeout session on Raw. It was uncomfortable, and that's being kind to watch. And just uncomfortable because Carmella. I mean, I wouldn't have minded like a quick 2-3 seconds, and then they cut to break. It felt like a 2-minute. A 2-minute straight shot of them just making out and Carmella literally taking her tongue and shoving it down Corey Graves' throat. I mean, she uses a lot of tongue. My God. I don't know. Not my style, right? Like, anyway, I want to get into my preferences for kissing. I was about to go off the deep end, so I saved myself. But it was just flat out uncomfortable. It was too much. And Corey was probably, elated to be able to do this with his fiance and show her off. And she's a very good looking woman. But I don't know, unnecessary is what this was. But another tag team dissolved. That's one. Let's see if we can get 2 on SmackDown. Austin Theory and the Usos defeat RK Bro and Finn Balor when Theory hit Balor with the ATL. And, this was necessary, I think, for Austin Theory to get back on his feet, so to speak, because of the loss he took at WrestleMania by a former NFL kicker, essentially just an announcer he lost to. And he ended up just WWE trying to gain a little momentum back for him, trying to reestablish him as that heel. And I think they did that here. At least in part. Everything wasn't erased in one night, all on top of Austin hitting him with a stunner and being kicked out of the ring. So there was some damage control to do on Austin Theory. And I think they did that fairly nicely. Now, how the Usos were allowed to come to Raw, I mean, they're not even bother explaining it anymore. They've just stopped explaining things. But I'm not going to stop asking. If they think that just because they continue to do something, that the implied expectation is that people just continue to shut up, well, yeah, that's not going to happen because that doesn't make it better. It makes it worse that you just continue to ignore it and are too lazy to address the fact that you now have people from SmackDown that inexplicably show up. Now, Roman showing up is fine. And somebody out there is saying, well, by association, they're part of the bloodline. Roman's part of the bloodline. Yeah, well, that's not how this works. It's on individual case-by-case basis, right? If you are the women's tag team champions, sure, you get to float because there's only one women's tag team championship and they can contend it on and defend it on any brand. Now that Roman has both belts, he certainly has the freedom to come and go. But just because you're a champion, maybe that's the logic, doesn't automatically grant you access to both brands. It shouldn't. But we're not even supposed to ask. We're just supposed to sit there and accept this like good little boys and girls and say, yes, WWE. Yes, WWE. Whatever you say. No problem. You break the rules. That's okay. No, it's not. It's not. For me, anyway. A lot of you out there are just like, shut up. Who cares? I care about this stuff. Because their silence is deafening when they don't explain things like this. And it's a microcosm, I think, of a bigger picture and really a microcosm of the larger issues at hand with WWE. How they view the audience. How they think we care or don't care about issues like this. It's a big deal. They build up the draft for many months ahead of time. Then they have the draft. They tell us about all the rules. And then within a week or two, they just break the rules. All right. Anyway, moving on. Edge and Damien Priest explained their new unholy alliance. So with Priest saying Edge's recent promos felt like Edge was speaking directly to him, that's why he connected with Edge. And Edge said that anybody that stands in our way of our message will be judged. I love that. It's great. It's great verbiage from Edge and from Damien. Damien did a nice job explaining things too. And he said he felt a little lost, but he has now been found, and Edge was seemingly speaking directly to him when he cut that promo a couple of weeks ago, turning heel. So this is fine. AJ Styles ran to the ring though, and he attacked Priest, but he was taken out by Edge and Priest predictably. But this is clearly not over. And I do like this alliance. Now, again, as I said, I think there will be a third person or fourth person added to this match or to this stable. I think there will be, and there should be, because the more young talent Edge can help on his way out for good this time, for real this time, the better. And he understands that. He knows he's in the give back. Even as a heel, it doesn't matter. You're still helping build those stars. And as a faction, it's also really hard to be babyface because you automatically outnumber your opponent by default a lot of the time. So heel factions are usually a better fit, and I think he's going to do a nice job. Okay, the Street Profits defeat Alpha Academy in a Texas Tornado tag match. The finish came when Montez Ford put Gable through a table with a frog splash. So the Street Profits get a victory. It seems as if the pecking order of the tag team division is starting to take shape. And I could be wrong, but this is how, in my mind, how it goes currently. You have RK-Bro on top, obviously, as champions. Then I do believe the second spot is now being filled by the Street Profits, followed by the Alpha Academy, and then fourth would be the Viking Raiders. That's how I would view the men's tag team division right now. So it seems as if they are setting up a one-on-one tag team match between the Street Profits and RK-Bro at Backlash. I could be wrong. That seems as if the path that they're taking right now. Okay, and then we get, my God, we get Roman Reigns, and with 9 minutes left, I was thinking to myself, all right, there's 9 minutes. Roman's coming out. His entrance is going to take up like 5 of those minutes. And it did. He comes out, and Heyman ran through the business successes and in-ring accomplishments of the Bloodline. Reigns, that he vowed that he would not rest on the accomplishments of beating Brock like other people would, but he's going to show up on SmackDown to talk about what's next. Yes. I think that's good. It's a hook for Friday. It's a hook for people to tune in. So that's always a good thing. You don't hear WWE doing that a lot, which they should. They don't often leave you wanting more or having a lot of questions. It's always, oh, thank God that's over, right? Because the show's so damn long. But it's a good hook for Friday, but it also is a very flat ending to Raw, for a Raw that should be raucous. So there is that. Nothing wrong with that, and I do believe it's Drew McIntyre. Again, The Rock, I'm done with that right now until it happens. Until I hear his music, I won't believe it. I finally retired that. So it's likely as Drew McIntyre. I mean, I don't know who else on SmackDown he could face. There's nobody else. And McIntyre just concluded his program with Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. God willing. I mean, yeah. So, all right. That is it for the Raw review, guys. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me here throughout WrestleMania weekend. It was a record-breaking weekend here for the podcast. And you guys are the reason for it. You guys are the reason I'm here and how we're able to continue to grow. If you want to help us continue to grow, so many ways to do it. Everything from our website going VIP to clicking that Amazon link on our website that kicks anything you buy a small percentage back to the show, to Patreon, to the Apple Podcast, the Apple Podcasts ad-free subscription that you can get for 99 cents a month. So many ways. You can also just simply give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Both are really helpful as well. And go check out the Kick-Ash podcast, as well as the done by Ashley Mann, and the Football Function podcast done by Michael Ritter. Both are excellent. You will not regret it. And you guys have heard them on the show many times, but they take their talents elsewhere and are starting to create their own brands, which I think is great. So Guys, that's it for me tonight. Don't forget, Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan are coming to you tomorrow. Get your emails in to me at mailbag@wwepodcast.com. Or you can, if you're Patreon, you can email me, message me directly in the Patreon app, or you can send in voicemails to the show. I'll be doing voicemails. So voicemails are for me. Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan are going to be taking care of all the messages, so don't forget to send those in. Thanks so much, guys. As always, I'll talk to you later. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.